Good morning. I'm Michael Kovnat, and this is the Next Big Idea Daily, the podcast that sharpens your thinking in just a few minutes a day. Now, we like to believe that our senses show us the world as it is. But what if your brain is quietly editing reality before you ever notice it? In his new book, A Trick of the Mind, psychologist and neuroscientist Daniel Yan explains how the brain builds theories about the world, other people, and even ourselves, and why understanding that process can change how we handle stress, conflict, and decision-making. Here's Daniel to share some big ideas right after this quick break.
Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar, zero patience for slow walkers, those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night, have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an Enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, I'm Daniel Yan, and I'm a psychologist, neuroscientist, and director of the Uncertainty Lab at Birkbeck, University of London. I'm also the author of A Trick of the Mind, How the Brain Invents Your Reality. In this book, I present a new way of thinking about you and your mind, that your brain is like a scientist, trying to build its own theories and models about the world, other people, and itself. Here, I'm going to share with you 5 insights from the book, and 5 ways that this new way of thinking can transform our understanding of mental health, neurodiversity, our relationships with other people, and our relationships with ourselves. Insight number 1. Your brain invents the world around you. Perceiving the world around us usually feels effortless. You point your eyes out in front of you and see a visual scene, or you open up your ears and hear my voice trailing into them. It's tempting to think that your sensing organs, things like our eyes and our ears, are just like instruments or sensors, like a camera or a microphone, simply taking the signals in. But the latest neuroscience and psychology suggests that's only half the story. Your brain, that scientist sitting inside your skull, takes all these measurements from your eyes and your ears, but combines them with its own theories and hypotheses about what's happening in the outside world. In this laboratory inside your head, your brain comes up with its own interpretation of what's happening in the world and what should and shouldn't be out there. This is usually a helpful process, but perceiving the world through the filter of these theories can leave us misunderstanding and misperceiving. One way you can experience this constructive process for yourself is when you mishear song lyrics, like people who hear Jimi Hendrix sing, "Excuse me while I kiss this guy," or Bob Dylan sing, "The ants are my friends." These misperceptions happen because your brain comes up with its own theory about what other people are saying, and these theories make sense of the signals your brain is picking up. These interpretations are wrong, they're complete hallucinations, but they become the reality that you experience. Thinking this way about perception can offer up a whole new perspective on some unusual experiences, ranging from the spiritual experiences of medieval mystics, to the voices heard by modern-day psychics, to the hallucinations that affect people in mental illnesses like psychosis. All these phenomena can arise when our brains rely too much on their own theories as we perceive the world around us, leading our expectations to leak into what we experience. But perceiving in this way doesn't make you mad. Rather, thanks to the scientists in our skulls, all of us are hallucinating, constructing the world we live in, moment by moment, all of the time. Insight number 2. We don't all have the same body language, we have body dialects. We don't just need theories and hypotheses to construct the world around us. Our brain also needs them to read the hearts and minds of other people. Though we often talk about getting inside of someone's head or walking in their shoes, in reality, we can never really directly experience the world from someone else's perspective. Instead, other people are more like other planets. Scientists looking for life on distant planets can never actually go and visit and experience what the atmosphere there is really like. Instead, we point our satellites out into the galaxy and look for signs of life that we can decode from the surface. In much the same way, when we try to read the minds of other people, all we really have to go on is the observable stuff on the surface too. The way they behave, the things they say, and the way they move. It might already seem obvious that we can read someone's body language to work out what they're thinking and feeling, but in reality there is no single body language. All of us instead has our own body dialect, tuned to the way that we move and express ourselves. This gives our brain a theory of what certain emotional or mental states should look like, but it means we'll struggle to read the minds of people who don't express themselves like we do. This can be important in lots of different contexts. For instance, as parents try to understand their children. As we grow up, our body movements change. Children and adolescents move faster than mature adults. And that means that emotional expressions literally look different. As parents try to understand their teenagers and vice versa, their brains can read each other through inappropriate theories, making it possible to see signs of anger or upset that aren't really there. This insight is important for understanding neurodiversity too. Studies also show that people with autism can have subtle differences in the way their body moves. While we might traditionally think that these groups are worse at reading minds than neurotypicals, once we account for these differences in expression, a rather different picture emerges. Autistic people might struggle to read the minds of neurotypicals, but it turns out neurotypicals also struggle to decode the thoughts and feelings of autistic people too. And crucially, it always takes two to tango. Ultimately, the lesson here is that it might not make sense to say some people are good at understanding other people and others are bad. Instead, understanding or misunderstanding is always about how we align the theories in our minds and brains. Insight number 3. When we look at ourselves in the mirror, we see our brain's theories reflected back. In 2008, Douglas Prusher got the news that the Nobel Prize in Chemistry would be awarded for his discovery of green fluorescent protein, an innovation that had let scientists around the world study the inner workings of tiny cells in hitherto unimaginable detail. Unfortunately, though, the Nobel Prize wouldn't be going to him. After a string of misfortunes, Prusher had left science altogether. By the time the call from Sweden came, he wasn't leading his own lab, but working as a courtesy car driver for a Toyota dealership in Alabama. How could it be that a scientist can have a genuinely Nobel Prize-winning idea, but not the confidence and self-belief to pursue it? How can our minds and brains get our self-images so wrong? In the same way that your brain has to construct theories of the world and of other people, it also needs to construct a theory of what you are like. Introspection is a serious challenge for brains like ours, so we have to rely on our own hypotheses and expectations when we make sense of our own abilities and talents. These theories are built on our past experiences, where past successes give us optimistic expectations about what we can achieve in the future, but past failures can leave us pessimistic about our chances, sapping our drive to try. This way of thinking can explain why scientists like Prusher, after strokes of bad luck, end up with negative self-images, clipping the wings of their ambition. But these ideas can have a deeper significance too. For instance, psychologists and neuroscientists have begun to think that mental illnesses like depression can arise when our brains get stuck with particularly pessimistic theories about what we can and can't achieve. In the end, we learn that we can't always trust how our minds feel from the inside, and our past experiences can cast a long shadow on who we think we are and what we think we're capable of. Insight number 4. Happiness has more to do with learning than earning. In the 1970s, British operatives were dispatched on clandestine missions behind the Iron Curtain. But these operatives weren't government spies, with suitcases stuffed full of state secrets. These agents were British academics, with briefcases filled with a more unusual kind of contraband, lectures on modern philosophy. In what became known as the Underground University, students in communist Czechoslovakia secretly studied for philosophy degrees under the noses of the state's secret police, who could have imprisoned them for simply following their curiosity. How can this be? What happens in our minds and brains that makes us think it's worth risking our liberty or our lives just to satisfy our curiosity? Where does this drive to know and understand come from? Thinking of your brain as being like a scientist offers a new perspective on what we value and why. So much has been written about the brain's greedy midbrain circuitry and the way that our brains will do anything to get the next dopamine hit. The latest science suggests a rather different picture. Of course, we have these more basic drives for food, for money or sex, but evolution has done something else to our brains, making us treat knowledge and information in the same currency as, well, currency. Because our thirst for knowledge latches onto the same brain circuits as thirst, our brains become curious scientists, with a drive to understand the world and our place in it. And this can explain some of the strangest findings in economics and psychology, like the fact that massive increases in our salary don't reliably translate into a happier life, or that moment-to-moment well-being seems to be happiest when we're learning something new and unexpected. In the end, thanks to the scientist in your skull, happiness is more about what you learn than what you earn. Insight number 5. Your brain controls its own paradigm shifts. The COVID-19 pandemic saw a dramatic spike in the number of people endorsing bizarre conspiracy theories. And not just about the pandemic, believing things like vaccinations were a front for mass sterilization, or that the injections contained hidden microchips. The effect went much deeper, making people believe, for example, in political conspiracies like the QAnon movement. How did this happen? How is it that perfectly normal people with perfectly normal minds can come to think the unthinkable? If your brain is a scientist building up theories and paradigms to understand the world, it also has to know when those paradigms should shift. What the latest science tells us is that your brain solves this problem by listing out the uncertainty and volatility in the outside world. If the environment seems to be stable, we want to stick with the theories we already have. But if the world seems to be changing, we should want our minds to change with it. This process usually serves us well, but it can make our minds vulnerable when the world around us seems to be shifting. Living through periods of uncertainty, like the pandemic, leads to a spike of activity in the brain circuits that track volatility. This in turn loosens old theories throughout the brain and makes it easier for them to be replaced by something new. This helps us to adapt our minds to our new surroundings, but it also makes us malleable and vulnerable to whatever message we happen to sample next, even if it comes from a conspiracy theory we would never otherwise believe. An open mind can be a dangerous thing. Knowing more about these mechanisms in our brains is revealing new ways that we might control how the paradigms in our brains do or don't shift. Indeed, there are already drugs, like Ritalin or propranolol, that seem to control how much we can update and change our minds. But the big question, though, is even if these pills can alter the theories and hypotheses concocted by that scientist in your skull, would you really want to take them? Our brain's paradigms might be a source of bias, misperception and misunderstanding, but they're also the key ingredient that makes perception and belief possible in the first place. For the scientist in your skull, there isn't any other way. But just like the theories in science, the theories in your brain aren't forever stuck. And just like the science itself, your mind is a work in progress.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, everyone, you can get a copy of A Trick of the Mind wherever fine books are sold, or use the link in the episode notes. Now, if you got something out of today's show, we hope you'll leave us a glowing rating and a 5-star review so others can find it too. That's our show for the day. Hope to see you tomorrow.